Ladies and or gentlemen, welcome back or welcome to the channel. My name is Zeno and let's talk about The Last of Us 11 entire years later. This video is going to function the same as my Wolf Among Us video prior. Actually, the first part is a recorded prologue, which is this now, before I start my playthrough, giving my overall opinion on the series and the game and some just background info for my thoughts towards it. The second part will be a recorded first impressions, maybe like 4 to 5 hours in, I think would be a good spot for this game, or just depending on the story beats that I'm up to at the time. Seeing how I feel about the game, jumping back in now, and it's got like a fresh coat of paint with the remake treatment. Am I having fun? What do I think so far? And then finally finishing off with the full playthrough is complete, and hopefully the platinum trophy as well, all broken up into chapters and listed in the description as well if you want to hop around. This allows everyone to just get all 3 stages of my evolving opinion on the game as I go along, and I think overall it's just more fun to listen to and watch. So remember, if you like what I do here, just giving my very average opinion in some very casual content, remember to like the video so YouTube knows it doesn't totally suck. Subscribe if you're new, and let's jump into it, shall we? So The Last of Us, releasing back in June of 2013 to pretty incredible critical and commercial acclaim from Naughty Dog. The game, for better or worse, depending on who you ask, kind of set the world on fire and definitely changed how some games are created today, especially within Sony's first-party studios. You can see the remnants in game franchises like the Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon, God of War, Spider-Man, etc. Last of Us Part 1 was actually one of the very first games I ever played on my PSN account. In fact, my one and only playthrough dates back to September of 2013, so a couple of months after its worldwide release, as I borrowed a copy from an old friend at the time. Looking back at my trophies, it looks like I did pretty much a full 100% run. I got all the artifacts, pendants, comics, collectibles, the shiv doors, training manuals, optional conversations, jokes. I crafted every item, etc. I admit I remember basically nothing of this at all. Like, this is in large part for the fact that, unlike the majority of the world when it comes to The Last of Us, like a series opinion wise, I didn't actually think it was like the greatest thing ever. I thought it was pretty good, but like I absolutely acknowledge the craftsmanship on display in terms of like characters and animations and graphics and lighting and the narrative and the voice acting and the, you know, the world design and the emotional beats that was supposed to like tug on your heartstrings, mostly anyway. I can see why this game was and still is so popular. However, at the time, 11 years ago, I was more of an Xbox gamer actually. I didn't care much for PlayStation exclusives, as I basically didn't touch my secondhand PS3 console barely at the time. I'd also seen this type of story shown before, like, you know, the whole end of the world, apocalypse style, third-person shooter, big on narrative, it's story based. I'd experienced these things before in different ways, maybe not all of them wrapped up in the same package, but overall all the concepts on display in The Last of Us were just like nothing new to me, as I expect it was to some others as well, to be honest. I have still yet to this day replayed the story or game at all, like in over 11 years now, and since Part 1 got a remake back in September of 2022 and it's now free on PS Plus as of recording, I think this would be the perfect opportunity to give it another fair go now that I am far older, seen far more of the world, and understand things like game concepts and storytelling and narrative beats and all that jazz just more proficiently at my age. And I've just been curious for many years now if I would actually like The Last of Us Part 1 more or less than I did when I was a lot younger. I have not played The Last of Us Part 2, mostly because I had a ton of it spoiled for me before launch and during. I know a lot of the major deaths and story beats and the ending of the game. I don't remember much of it now, but I did at the time, and I was not entirely hot on the franchise anyway, and I definitely remember having some pretty bad, jaded, and negative opinions on the game, even though I had not played it myself. So that game is definitely on the table in the future to give a fair go to as well, despite what I feel about Part 1. So here we go, The Last of Us, first replay in 11 years through the remake, free on PS Plus as of recording. I'm excited to see how I feel about this game. I am hoping to leave this game more positive than I think I remember being 11 years ago, as I just prefer to enjoy things overall, although I also recognize I can be fairly critical at times too for things that I'm kind of 50-50 on, so I'm kind of just praying for a more positive experience, especially especially because if I am lucky but unlucky at the same time with this particular video hitting the YouTube algorithm, because a few of mine have recently, and the fan base just dogpiling on me for whatever opinion I end up landing on because they can't handle criticism of their beloved franchise. So I'm totally not looking forward to that at all, but I'm gonna try my best to be positive but truthful and not biased at the same time. So here I go. Wish me luck, The Last of Us Part 1. Let's get into it. Alrighty, I haven't had much time to play, so this is a few days later actually since my recorded prologue. I've just gotten up to Billstown, so I'm only about 3 to 4 hours in maybe. I'm exploring that and I'm seeing Ellie and Joel's relationship just ever so slowly start to begin a bit more now. So impressions so far. The graphics are insanely high quality. This has got to be up there as one of the best looking games on PS5 for sure. Like the lighting, the reflections, the facial features. This is a very high quality remake. Like, I'm a little astounded at how good this looks and plays as well. I didn't look into this game much when it released, like the remake. I didn't have much interest. I kind of just threw it on my wish list pile for like a future sale, or if it was free on PS Plus. And while I don't remember much from like 11 years ago, and it's always hard to tell to what degree a game improves and what it's actually from memory to like what's real, especially when you've spent so much time away from something. But I don't remember the game looking like this, even if I did have like rose tinted nostalgia glasses, for example, which we often do in life when we're replaying much older titles. This is such a glow up from what my memory tells me. I'm super impressed by this. One thing that I am noting though is facial features tell a much stronger story and they really emphasize emotions more, especially when you have such high grade mocap and actors performing these roles. And this remake so far, it really shines through with these details. Like, it's very impressive. Not that I think the original game looks bad, but and it didn't have like great looking characters, but this is just like on another level. They must have really taken a lot of this from The Last of Us 2. The combat feels pretty good. It's very simple though, and while I don't remember it being this smooth, this is definitely another remake treatment for sure. Takedowns, they're fairly visceral. Like, damn man, like you can literally see the light go out from their eyes as you stealth kill people quietly. Like, they're not super fast takedowns either. It takes like a good few seconds to like drag an enemy down to the floor level and like squeeze the life out of them. Like, all the new facial animations and the tech really are putting in work here as you completely murder your way through the game. The gameplay loop overall, it's fairly solid. It's a very linear game, which is fine. I'd hate to see this as a more open world title, to be honest. And the looting for craftable materials and items to upgrade Joel, it's fun enough. There's no complaints so far. It's very standard by the books, third-person looting mechanics. The workbench though, I've only seen like 1, maybe 2 so far, but man, this must have been pulled from The Last of Us 2. At least that's what it feels like it probably has been, even though I haven't played it. But this is quite fun and in-depth. Just like the way that Joel like semi-takes apart guns and uses like little mini tools to upgrade, say like a pistol for more ammo capacity or increased stability. It's just like a cool like little new feature. I can't say I really remember what the OG version of this was at all, but I'm positive this is a much upgraded version compared to the sequel. I'll leave it there for now. Just a very short first impressions. I'll trudge through the rest of the game and I'll report back now on full completion. I just wanted to give some first impressions after about 3 to 4 hours, but this might take me like another week at least so far because I've just been busy and I haven't had much time to play, but I am enjoying it more than I thought I would be, which is a good thing. But you never know, of course, with the story beats and the gameplay by the end, where my opinion will finally land. But at this stage, even very early on, I doubt it'll be a negative opinion. This is a very strong remake for an 11-plus-year-old game, and I am so glad that so far that I am not only replaying, but also re-experiencing this again after more than a decade. Because again, I never played The Last of Us since its original PS3 release, so I'm very glad. This is clearly aimed at people like me who have not played since the original game. So you jump into the remake and there's such a vast array of differences to what I remember, or at least what my memory is telling me. Anyway, I'll stop rambling and yeah, I'll go complete the game and we'll report back, see how I feel. And there it is, completion number 64, platinum number 52, The Last of Us Part 1 remake. Took me about 8 days juggling in between other things. I did have a good time with it overall though, so I am really glad I played it again. I clocked in around 15 hours, including the Left Behind DLC, which was brand new to me. It's very short though, it wasn't bad, it was kind of just average. Also, just a heads up, spoilers ahead obviously for the story and the ending especially, which I definitely want to touch on a couple of those things. First off, if you're ever planning on a trophy run for this game, just please do yourself a favor. Don't do it on your first playthrough. Like, there are 254 collectibles and stopping every 30 seconds to consult a guide really dulls the experience. Like, with such a strong story and narrative-led experience that this game is, it's really best to just not have this interrupted. So obviously, like fellow trophy hunters, you will understand my pain, of course. Is this self-inflicted? Yes. But will I stop? No. My brain's broken and I'm hooked on that trophy dopamine hit. So yeah, I'm gonna do it again. All right, so let's highlight a couple of key story moments from my playthrough that I wanted to touch on, that I took some notes. The scenes with Bill and Frank early in the game in Billstown. The TV show absolutely surpassed the game in this aspect. Like, in the game itself, Billstown only lasts for maybe like 2 hours at most. Bill mentions that Frank was his partner, but the game doesn't really elaborate much or even really hint that it could actually be romantically. In contrast, the show actually dedicates an entire episode to their relationship, which just adds a very significant and meaningful layer to Bill's character, and it kind of mirrors Joel's loss of Sarah at the beginning as well, so we understand him a bit better. So without the TV show knowledge, this would have just been like another throwaway story beat that you don't kind of look back on or reflect on. So I'm really glad I did watch the show a few years back. I don't remember much about the show, but that was one of the episodes that I do remember, so I am really glad I did. Gotta say, in line with that thinking though, the game tends to gloss over these moments and it moves very quickly through the story. It's got good pacing. Like, the pacing heightens the emotional impact of Joel and Ellie's journey and those that surround them. It's like a train. You stop at a station, you meet new characters, something inevitably terrible happens, and then you move on and you're barely looking back. Like, you're never left with much time to really wrangle with the major story beats and the loss that you go through before you're on to the next station and the next thing. Let's take Henry and Sam, for example. They travel with Joel and Ellie for just a short while before inevitably, again, tragedy strike, forcing Joel and Ellie to keep pushing forward once again. The game sets the expectation that in this morally like grey world, bad things are gonna happen all the time and the characters just have to keep moving forward to survive, always trying to find that like silver lining in survival itself and what to fight for. I particularly enjoyed the section where you got to play as Ellie. Actually, I'd forgotten how long this part was, comparatively speaking to the rest of the subsections of the game. The whole David scenario, like learning about his men that you killed and then getting taken hostage and then ultimately like confronting him. It was a very important part of Ellie's story of survival. For a brief moment, there was no Joel. She's by herself. And so that moment after Ellie kills David and Joel like cradles her in his arms also really solidified their relationship to me and how much it had grown since the start of the game. Now, let's talk about the ending of the game. I got a bit to say about this. So I remembered it because of the TV show, and I remembered it because it's been debated for over a decade at this point. Did Joel do the right thing by saving Ellie and potentially dooming all of humanity if she was the key to a cure? Now, as someone without kids, I cannot fully grasp the anguish of losing a daughter and then facing the possibility of losing another daughter-like figure like Ellie. But I believe that most parents would make the same choice that Joel did, saving Ellie, because to a parent, Ellie would be their world. Now let's clarify, Joel isn't a hero. He straddles the line of an anti-hero and a potential villain for a lot of the game. He kind of just does whatever it takes. So he kills, he lies, he deceives, he does it for survival and to protect the people around him. Yes, Ellie does help him grow and rediscover some of that love after losing Sarah, but that doesn't make him a good person. I think about who Joel was before the outbreak, a loving father with a normal life. I say this to drive home the point that he becomes the man he is in the present because of the harsh world and reality around him. It has shaped him into someone who only knows how to survive, often at any cost. Now, you take Marlene, who thought with some good conscience or what little she had left, that the man who had crossed the country on foot, or for the better term, the one-man army that is Joel, who had lost everything and nearly everyone prior, would not establish some form of emotional connection to Ellie in like any way, who was like his daughter and would be completely okay to give her away and let her die. Like, let's be honest, die for what is honestly a lost cause to save humanity. It's kind of like a joke. If I was in Joel's shoes, I would absolutely likely make the same decision. Funnily enough, like I was thinking about it, it's also interesting to consider the legitimate logistics of the Fireflies plan. Marlene mentioned that they were barely hanging on while trying to find a cure, and that most of her men were lost when they were trying to travel cross country to this hospital. And so I feel their plan for Ellie just felt rushed and slightly reckless. To think that they would jump straight to surgery on Ellie after like 1 or 2 days of her being there without giving her or Joel any choice or a heads up is just baffling to me. Like there was no absolute certainty that they could extract anything useful from her after her death. The idea that would just go straight for the kill without considering any other option is just absurd to me. Like I don't know anything about researching cures and I have zero medical knowledge, but you're telling me that keeping the only living person alive who is immune for blood or tissue samples or just any other information, it was not possibly an option or even attempted or tried long term. Not once. To think that they, as I've mentioned before, they have the logistics to create, mass produce, and then distribute the cure nation or even worldwide with what's left of the dying Fireflies, as Marlene mentioned, before the cure potentially even falls into like bad hands for either politics or power plays in the world that they currently live in. Like, nah, man, I don't buy that for a second. So yes, Joel was justified in his actions. I think most rational people would do the same, especially parents. Anyway, I've rambled on a bit in this video. I had a bit to say, especially during the ending, but I think I mentioned it in the impressions part of the video, but I really am glad I gave this game another chance. Is it a favorite game or series? Something where I'm eager to jump into part 2? Nah, not really. Like, I'll get around to it. I am more open-minded now about the experience of going into the part 2, even though I know the spoilers. The remake treatment did make this experience just smoother and more modern. I really do highly recommend it, especially for it because it's free on PlayStation Plus. That being all said though, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Remember, if you like what I do here, just giving my very average opinion in some very casual content. Remember to like the video so YouTube knows it doesn't totally suck. Subscribe if you're new. I upload every sometimes, maybe. Follow me on my socials, and yeah, I hope you guys are having a fan-freaking-tastic rest of the day. And as always, my name is Zeno, and you guys take care now.